Hi everyone and welcome. Today we're going to be diving into the elements of drama. Drama is really one of literature's oldest and most powerful forms. It brings human experience to life through action and dialogue. So let's go ahead and break down the essential elements that make a play work. All right, so here's what we're going to be covering today. First, we'll take a look at plot, followed by character. Then we'll differentiate between theme versus topic. We'll look at diction and melody, and then we'll take a look at what spectacle is and what it contains. And lastly, we'll look at setting, and we'll go ahead and wrap it up at the end. All right. Okay, so here we have plot, and we have a really cool image right here that kind of puts it into a visual for you if you're a visual person. First, we start with the introduction or the exposition. So this really introduces the characters and the situation, usually at the beginning of the play. It'll also introduce the main conflict. Next, we have the rising action or the conflict. Now, this will usually kind of kick off that action. The main character will be in some sort of crisis, some sort of event will happen that will lead up to the conflict begin to being unfolded. And in a play, it'll usually be really, really complicated. Next, we'll have the climax. Now, the climax is usually the story's turning point. So this is the peak of the play. This is essentially like what we are waiting for as we are, say, going up into a roller coaster, and then you get to the very top, and that is the climax of a play. And this is a major event that will usually occur in which the main character will face some sort of challenge that changes the rest of the outcome of the character's situation. All right, next we have the falling action or the denouement. Now, this is when the story kind of slowly begins to slow down and it kind of starts to tie up any loose ends and it works its way towards the end. And this is when most major issues are resolved. And then lastly, we have the resolution. So this is the conclusion. This is the concluding scene that resolves any remaining issues of the play. Again, tying up any loose ends. All right. Okay, so now we have character. All right, so characters help move the plot forward. So there's two key roles. We have our protagonist and our antagonist. Now, the protagonist is the main character. This is like the person that we follow, the person that we kind of root for. Next, we have our antagonist. So this is the force. And again, I say force because it may not necessarily be a person or one individual. It could be a group of people. It could be a community, an institution. It could also be part of nature, such as an animal, the weather, mountain or lake, etc. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a person. Okay. And notice here we have an image. Oops. We have an image of Batman and Joker, two very well-known protagonists and antagonists. And the visual clearly shows this relationship of protagonist and antagonist. We have their opposing desires and actions that kind of begin to create this dramatic tension. All right, next we have our minor characters, which are just as important. So these are the other characters in the story. So they may not be as important as the major characters, but they still play a large part in the story. They still add something. And so their actions also help drive the story forward. And they also may impact the decisions of the protagonist or the antagonist. So they're kind of like key players, but they're almost in the background, and you really have to pay attention to see if they have any change in the protagonist or the antagonist. So they could either help or interfere with the conflict. Okay. All right. And here we have different traits that a minor character may have. We have foil. So foil is a character that has opposite character traits from another. This is meant to kind of highlight or bring out another's positive or negative side. So many times the antagonist is usually the foil for the protagonist. So they're opposites essentially. Next, we have the static characters. So these are characters that don't change. They just remain the same all throughout. They don't necessarily create or relieve any sort of tension or they may sometimes, but they're not meant to change like the main story. Next, we have dynamic. So this is how a character grows or evolves. So dynamic characters will change throughout the story. They may learn a lesson, become bad, or change in complex ways. They may realize something that they didn't know at the beginning. Next, we have flat characters. So these characters are simple, as opposed to round characters who are, again, the opposite of flat characters. These are characters that are more complex, have different traits, good or bad, making them a little bit more interesting. Next, we have stock characters, and these are just stereotypical and instantly recognizable characters, such as boy genius, an ambitious career person, a faithful sidekick, mad scientist. These are characters that we tend to see over and over and over again, whether it's in literature, in film, or in plays, etc. Okay, next we have topic and theme. So let's go ahead and differentiate a little bit between the two. It's really easy to confuse the two, so here's the difference. So for topic, this is what the play is about on the surface level. So it's a play about love, for example, like Romeo and Juliet, or it's a play about revenge. Now theme takes a deeper look at what the lesson is or the underlying message may be. So for example, love can destroy, or revenge leads to ruin. So we also have this image right here that may break down the difference further for you if you don't understand it. So it lists topics like bravery, jealousy, freedom, while showing how these connect to the themes like truth, hope, preservation. So that's pretty much the difference between the two. Topic, again, surface level. Theme delves a little bit more and attempts to find the underlying message or lesson in the story, play, or song. Okay, next we have diction or melody. So diction is the playwright's word choice, essentially. Each character's speech reveals something about them, okay? So you want to ask yourself, does the character sound formal or casual? Do they speak in slang or poetic rhythm? Do they hesitate, rant, or speak clearly? That's why it's really important, if you can, listen to Othello or watch the actual play in action, because you can really listen to how different the diction is and the melody is depending on the character. Now, we have melody here. So melody refers to how the lines sound. So think rhythm, rhyme, or meter. So for example, Shakespeare often uses iambic pentameter, which we talked about earlier, and structured verse. And we have an example right here. She loved me for the dangers I had passed. This is from Act 1, Scene 3. So we see here the iambic pentameter has 5 iambs, unstressed and stressed. The unstressed words are not bolded, whereas the stressed words are bolded. So when you read it in the iambic pentameter. So the dun, the dun, the dun, the dun, the dun. She loved me for the dangers I had passed. So that's really common in many of Shakespeare's plays. That's essentially how he wrote most of them. All right. Next, we have spectacle. So this refers really to everything that we see on the stage, whether that's set design, lighting, costumes, props, actor movement, positioning, etc. And we have an image of a production of Othello that was held at the Globe Theatre in London. And here, oh, where did it go? As we see, it's a very simple wooden stage. They show how spectacle can really be powerful, even without these high-tech effects. Because you have to remember, at least for this specific production, they set it in the time that it was supposed to take place. All right. Next, we have setting. And setting refers to where and when the action takes place. So in older plays, like Shakespeare, we don't always get detailed scenery. So we really rely on dialogue and character interactions to kind of imagine that setting. And contemporary drama may use elaborate backdrops or minimalistic designs, but setting really does still shape the mood and the meaning. All right, so to recap, understanding plot, character theme, diction, melody, spectacle, setting, all that good stuff will make you a stronger reader and viewer of drama. And as you watch and read Othello, pay attention to how each of these elements kind of work to reveal character motivations, build tension, and leave an impact, which is so important. And then when you watch O, the 2001 adaptation, observe how the spectacle, again, and this is the setting, lighting, etc., changes as you experience the play or the film. All right, so great talking to you, and I will see you all later. Bye.